Today we're talking about a shelter that weighs 11 ounces, but that also gives you plenty of protection on trail. Shelter's made by 6 Moon Designs and is the GATEWOOD CAPE. Now the GATEWOOD CAPE not only is a shelter, but it's also made to be a poncho. Now this shelter weighs 11 ounces. And that is insane to me. And some of the red flags that started going up as I was looking at this and purchasing this, I was like, okay, it's $150, it's 11 ounces, this thing has got to be dinky. And I don't know if it's actually going to protect me, I don't know if it's enough. Answer some of those questions today. So let's go ahead and get this thing set up and chat just a little bit more. You know, as I'm setting this thing up, I want to make sure that we all understand how to set up trekking poles. And very simply, I'm going to have a video that will go into detail about this, but very simply put, when you have a single trekking pole shelter, you want to stake out the back 2 corners first, and then move to the trekking pole, and then move to the peak guy out, whereas where you put your trekking pole in, you have that line that you guy out and stake in. I'll show you a little bit what that looks like so you can get a better idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, again, really quick, as you see, we staked out the back 2 corners, then we've got the peak guy out. What this does is it creates a perfect triangle. What do we know about triangles? They're strong and they last the test of time. So try to create a nice triangle in the back here, and then we'll set up the rest of the tent from here. It's gonna take 6 stakes to set this thing up. Now I recommend bringing an additional 2 stakes so that you can guy out both the head and the foot end of the tent. With a single wall tarp shelter with no netting, there's so much ventilation in this thing that I can't imagine there's gonna be crazy problems with condensation, but I have to stake out the head and the foot end in order to get enough room where I feel like I'm not going to have my sleeping bag rubbing on the walls. 6 stakes, 1 trekking pole. They recommend the trekking pole being set from 45 to 49 inches depending on your pitch, depending on how high or low you want that floor to sit up off the ground. Let's talk about the guy out systems to set this up. On the front here, they have a prusik knot. You put it under tension like it does on the door here, you can slide it and the tension stays and it catches itself. It's a really cool knot. So they've created a piece of shock cord that's divided into 3 separate areas so that when you're staking it out, if you hit a rock at the closest one, you can move back to the next one or to the next one, which I think is a cool feature, and they also added that on to keep the weight down. As you saw on the top, there's a very unique structure in the top that kind of looks funny with all those different colors. That's just what gives this tent or this cape the ability to be pitched as a tent and gives it enough structure to hold it in place. Now, as you can see, the way to close off the top is that's where the hood is. That's going to be the hood. As you cinch that down, the hood's going to close. It becomes a shelter that won't leak from the top. Let's check out the inside. Now, don't get too excited. It's just a tarp shelter, so there's not too much. But there are a few things that I want to show you on the inside of this tent. Now let's talk about peak height. Recommend setting it up between 45 to 49 inches on your trekking pole. So the peak height is pretty much normal for your standard trekking pole tent. Nothing crazy high, nothing too low. There's a few very simple features on the inside. One being the pocket that you stuff this cape into also becomes a storage pocket on the inside, which is nice that they can turn that function into 2 functions rather than just making it a stuff sack. On either side of the tent, there is a system here that is meant to go with their Serenity net tent, which is, this is where that clips in on the head end and the foot end, and then as well at the top of the tent. If you're okay with just a tarp, single wall, you're gonna be happy with this tent. But if you're looking to get a double wall system that protects you from bugs, check out the Serenity net tent. I'll be sure to link that in the description below. I wanted to give you guys kind of an idea of how much room is in here when I have a pad. I brought my Thermarest NeoAir Ultralight, just a regular size pad, so that I can get in here and show you how much foot room I have without guying out the head and the foot end. All right guys, Ultralights have been notorious for popping and leaking. I got a lot of pine needles, but you guys are worth the risk. Let's hop on the pad. Okay, so as you can see, it's pretty cramped for me. I'm 6'1", like I said before. Both my head and my feet touch the sides of this tent. With that being said, they do have a guy out at the head and the foot that can be pulled out. And with those pulled out, it's still tight, but I do have enough room that I would feel comfortable even if there was a little bit of condensation. But just something to keep in mind is that this is going to be a tight shelter. It's only 11 ounces or 310 grams, and it's really tight. And that's what you're expecting going into an ultralight shelter that is like this. All right, so the footprint on this tent, you can't really calculate because there's technically not a footprint, but the specified area from Six Moon Designs of this tent is 35 square feet. One person, a pad, and some extra gear here in the little vestibule is plenty of space. Let's talk about some of the things that make me nervous about this tent and some of the reasons that I'm considering returning it. It's made out of a 15D sil nylon fabric, which I'm not saying that's a bad fabric or even that 15D is too light, but for me, as soon as I got it out of the package, and I don't mean this as like a diss to Six Moon Designs or anything, but it really kind of felt like a novelty product. Like, you know that thing that you get that you're like, oh, this is fun to have, cool to talk about, but actually I'm gonna stick to my other tent. And that's kind of how I felt about this tent. I got it, I set it up, I'm like, you know what? I wanna always have to stake out the head and the foot end just to fit inside this tent. Now I think if you're under 5'10" or you're under 6 foot, that'd probably be okay for you. But it just didn't work for me. Something else is the way that the top closes. I know that it cinches down pretty tight, but I still am worried about water leaking through or about the wind blowing in the night and my trekking pole slipping out of that little grommet and poking a hole through the top of it. Something else that made me really apprehensive with this tent was if I'm using it for its intended purpose of both a shelter and a cape to keep the water off of me, what happens if I walk past some brush and I tear a hole in this while I'm using it as a rain cape? Then I'm screwed. I don't have any way to stay warm when I get to camp. So I do think it's important to have products that have multiple functions, but in this case, the function of a rain jacket and a tent just didn't make enough sense for me to keep this around. So with all of that being said, I want to tell you who I think that this tent is for. I would say if you're under 5'10", you're a section hiker or a through hiker or somebody who really likes to get their base weight down as low as possible, you backpack in drier climates and you're not worried as much about condensation, I think that would be a great option for people like that. Now for me personally, I like to be able to have a little bit of extra room. I like to have vestibules, I like to have a net because I don't want to get eaten alive by bugs. Even though I backpack in Utah and bugs aren't like a crazy issue, it's still something that I like. And as I said before, there is an option to add on the Serenity net tent with this, which is still a decent price. It's only adding a little bit of extra weight. Do I recommend this or do I not? I don't want to say yes or no because I want you to decide for yourself if you feel like this is something that would work for you. Six Moon Designs is a really reputable company, and one of my favorite pieces of gear, the Lunar Solo, comes from this company. And this is very similar. It is smaller, it is a thinner fabric, but it is comparable. And the setup is the same. Overall, it was really fun to get this out and use it and find out that it doesn't work for me. And that's what I would challenge you all to do. Get a piece of gear that you have or that you're interested in and hit the trail and try it out. That's what I did with this, and I found out that it didn't work for me. So I'm going to send it back and find something else that does. Really hope that you guys enjoyed this video today. Please subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this. Tap the bell notification so you're notified every time I post a new video, and smash the like button. Backpackers, thanks for stopping by.